Have you ever stopped to wonder why certain places seem to speak to us, to whisper to our souls through the silent language of structure, shape, and space? New York City, with all its towering steel and stone, is not just a city of buildings, it is a living testament to the human spirit's boundless desire to create, to express, and to evolve. When we walk through the streets of New York, we are not merely observers of history, we are participants in a dialogue that spans centuries. Architecture here is not simply about design or function. It is a reflection of consciousness at different points in time. Every building, from the elegant brownstones of Brooklyn to the soaring spires of Manhattan, tells a story not just of wealth or ambition, but of vision, struggle, and the deep need we all share to leave something behind that says, I was here, I mattered. Consider the early days of this great city, when modest Dutch colonial structures lined the edges of what would become a global metropolis. There was no skyline then, just a vast sky and a dream. Yet even in those humble beginnings, there was intention, a desire to build not just shelters, but a future. As the city grew, so did its architectural soul. The cast iron facades of Soho, the Beaux-Arts grandeur of Grand Central Terminal, and the Gothic revival of St. Patrick's Cathedral, each arose not just from stone and steel, but from imagination. These were not accidents of design, they were manifestations of thought, of belief. They reveal how people of each era saw themselves, their world, and what they deemed possible. And then came the skyscrapers, those monuments to aspiration. The Empire State Building, rising above the clouds, stands as more than a marvel of engineering. It is a metaphor for what happens when you align your inner vision with action. It is proof that when thought and intention unite with effort, something timeless emerges, something that cannot be ignored. But let's not get lost only in the physical. Architecture, like life, is about flow, the flow of ideas, of purpose, of energy. The evolving skyline of New York mirrors the inner growth of those who built it and those who inhabit it. From the Art Deco brilliance of the Chrysler Building to the minimalist transparency of One World Trade Center, we see the evolution of not just a city, but a collective awareness. This city teaches us that nothing is static. Old structures give way to new forms. Renewal is constant, and so it is with us. What we build on the outside, our homes, our careers, our relationships, is an echo of the architecture within. The foundation matters. The vision matters. But above all, the intention, the purpose behind our creations is what gives them meaning. New York's architectural history is not just about aesthetics or materials. It is about the power of thought becoming form, about imagination made visible. And if this city, once just a small outpost, can grow into a global beacon through the sheer force of vision and intention, then so can each of us build our lives into something magnificent. Remember, we are all architects, not just of buildings, but of destiny. What will you choose to create? What skyline will you leave behind? When we walk through a city like New York, we often see only the exterior, the tall buildings, the intricate facades, the busy streets lined with glass, steel, and stone. Yet beneath all of that visible structure lies something invisible, but even more powerful: human consciousness. Architecture is not just about construction, it is about expression. Every arch, every spire, every window carved into a building is a reflection of how people once thought, felt, and dreamed. Buildings, like people, have stories. And those stories begin in the human mind. The earliest structures in New York were born from necessity, but even necessity is shaped by perception. The way early settlers perceived their world, their fears, hopes, limitations, and ambitions all found physical form in the buildings they created. Simple wooden homes, protective forts, and utilitarian warehouses emerged not just from materials, but from a mindset focused on survival, community, and expansion. As society evolved, so too did the architecture. As human awareness expanded beyond survival into realms of art, culture, and innovation, the buildings began to rise in complexity. And beauty. Consider the transition from those early dwellings to the grand cathedrals, theaters, and eventually the skyscrapers that define the modern skyline. This was not merely technological progress, it was consciousness unfolding. The people who lived in each era of New York's history thought differently about themselves and their place in the world. They saw greater possibilities, envisioned more beauty, and reached for new heights, literally and figuratively. Their beliefs about what was possible took form in stone, metal, and glass. Architecture became a mirror for the inner world of those who imagined it. And this is true across time. The ornate details of Beaux Arts buildings reflect a consciousness that valued grandeur, ornamentation, and the celebration of human achievement. The sleek, minimalist lines of modernist architecture show a shift toward clarity, simplicity, and function, perhaps reflecting a collective desire for order in an increasingly complex world. Postmodern skyscrapers, with their daring shapes and symbolic gestures, tell us that human consciousness is no longer confined by traditional rules. It seeks freedom, individuality, and a reconnection with meaning. But architecture doesn't only reflect collective consciousness, it also influences it. The spaces we inhabit shape our thoughts, moods, and experiences. Walking into a grand hall can uplift the spirit. A quiet sanctuary can bring peace. A towering building can inspire awe. We are not separate from the environments we create. They speak to us, shape us, and feed back into our awareness. This loop between inner thought and outer structure is constant. What we believe becomes what we build, and what we build in turn affects what we believe. In this way, New York's skyline is more than a collection of buildings. It is a portrait of evolving human awareness. It reveals what people valued at different times: safety, power, wealth, community, art, freedom, innovation. These values, shaped in the mind, became form in the world. And that process continues as our consciousness expands toward greater inclusivity, sustainability, and connection. Our architecture begins to reflect those values too. Green buildings, open public spaces, designs that harmonize with nature. These are signs that human thought is shifting again, becoming more aligned with both inner well-being and outer harmony. So when we look at architecture, we are not just seeing history, we are seeing thought made visible. We are seeing the result of countless minds inspired by vision, acting in alignment with what they believed to be possible. Just as our thoughts shape the structures of our lives, the buildings of our cities are shaped by the collective inner world of those who came before us. Every brick, every beam, every skyline is consciousness in form, a silent witness to the infinite power of thought to become reality. Before anything comes into being, before any structure rises or any dream is realized, there is intention. It is not action alone that shapes the world. It is the inner impulse, the quiet decision, the subtle alignment of thought and desire that gives birth to creation. Intention is the invisible seed from which all visible outcomes grow. It is the origin of every invention, every work of art, every building, every life path. Without intention, action is scattered and directionless. With it, action becomes purposeful and creative. In the context of architecture and the history of cities like New York, this principle is vividly illustrated. The skyline, the roads, the neighborhoods did not come into existence by accident or random effort. They were born from vision, from individuals and groups who imagined what could be and set their intention to bring it forth. The great skyscrapers that tower over Manhattan, the bridges that span rivers, and the parks that provide refuge within the chaos of the city were all first imagined. That imagination was guided by intent to create something useful, something beautiful, something lasting. But intention is not just about goals or outcomes. It is about alignment. True creation begins when our thoughts, emotions, and actions are in harmony. When we set an intention, we are not simply wishing for something to happen. We are aligning ourselves with the energy and focus needed to bring it into reality. This alignment influences every choice we make, every step we take. It gives meaning to our actions and draws in the resources, opportunities, and inspiration necessary for creation to unfold. When we act without intention, we may be busy, but we are not necessarily creating. We may build, but what we build lacks soul, lacks coherence. On the other hand, when intention is clear and strong, even small actions become powerful. They carry the weight of purpose. They resonate with clarity. This is true whether we are constructing a building, starting a business, creating art, or shaping our lives. The outer world is always a reflection of our inner state. If our intention is pure and focused, our creation will reflect that purity and focus. In the history of architecture, we see how different intentions have shaped different eras. There were times when the intent was to inspire awe and reverence. And so we have cathedrals and monuments that lift the spirit. At other times, the intention was efficiency and speed, and we see functional, minimalist structure. Today, many creators are setting intentions around sustainability, community, and harmony with nature, and new designs reflect that shift. Intention acts as the compass. It guides the hands and minds of those who build, and the result is a world that mirrors those inner directives. But this truth extends far beyond architecture. In every area of life, creation begins with intention. Relationships flourish when entered with the intent to love and understand. Health improves when we set the intention to care for our body. Careers grow when we align our work with the intent to serve, to learn, to contribute. Without intention, we drift. With it, we create deliberately. What matters is not how grand or small our intention may seem, but how deeply we hold it. Even a simple intention like being present can change the course of a day. A deeper intention like living with compassion or building something that benefits others can change a life or even a city. Intention is not bound by time or resources. It is the one thing we always have. It begins within, and from that inner space, it extends outward, shaping everything we touch. So when we look at the great creations of the world, we are really seeing the power of intention made visible. Every meaningful creation began with a thought, a choice, a moment of clarity, a decision to act with purpose. That is where all creation begins. New York is often seen as a symbol of progress, ambition, and constant movement. Its skyline, ever-changing and reaching toward the heavens, is a physical manifestation of human evolution. Not just in terms of technology or economy, but in terms of consciousness. The growth of this city mirrors the inner evolution of the individuals who built it, lived in it, and dreamed through it. Each phase of New York's development reflects a shift in awareness, a transformation of values, and a deepening of the human understanding of self and possibility. In its earliest days, New York was a modest trading post, built with the intention of survival and commerce. The structures were simple, functional, and reflective of a mindset that focused on basic needs and community establishment. During this time, consciousness was closely tied to the physical world: food, shelter, protection. The architecture was limited in scope, grounded in practicality, and mirrored the collective awareness of a people who were just beginning to carve out a place for themselves in a new land. As the city grew, so did its ambition. The Industrial Revolution brought waves of change, not only in terms of machinery and labor, but in terms of how people viewed the world and their role in it. Suddenly there was a belief in progress, in the ability to shape reality through effort and invention. Skyscrapers began to rise, not just as places to work or live, but as symbols of potential. The famous phrase, "the sky's the limit," took on a literal meaning. These towering structures reflected a shift in consciousness, a move from survival to striving, from settling to expanding. The city became a canvas for dreams that reached beyond the material into the symbolic. The evolution continued into the 20th century, when art, culture, and individual expression began to shape the landscape. The architecture of this era, Art Deco masterpieces like the Chrysler Building and the Empire State Building, showed an awareness that beauty, form, and creativity matter just as much as function. This was a time when human beings began to explore not only what they could do, but who they could become. The city's physical growth echoed this inner journey. It became not only a place of industry, but of inspiration. As consciousness expanded further, new priorities emerged. The late 20th and early 21st centuries brought challenges that caused deeper reflection on sustainability, community, diversity, and well-being. The buildings and spaces of New York began to evolve again, this time guided by intentions to harmonize with nature, to serve the collective, and to preserve the past while welcoming the future. Parks were created in former industrial zones. Green buildings began to rise alongside steel giants. Historic structures were restored with reverence, acknowledging that growth does not always mean replacing the old, but integrating it with care and awareness. What we witness in New York is more than a city's expansion, it is a reflection of inner transformation. As human beings become more conscious, more aware of their impact, their purpose, and their interconnectedness, their creations reflect that awareness. The city becomes a mirror, showing the journey from survival to aspiration, from ambition to reflection, from separation to unity. This growth, like personal growth, is never linear. It moves in waves, cycles, and sometimes contradictions. There are moments of great expansion and moments of stillness, times of building and times of rebuilding. Yet at every stage, the outer form of the city is a response to the inner state of those who shape it. The skyline is a portrait of human evolution, of thought expanding into structure, of dreams made real through intention and action. In this way, New York teaches us that the outer world and the inner world are not separate. They grow together, evolve together, and reflect one another. The journey of the city is in many ways the journey of the human spirit, always reaching higher, always becoming more. Buildings are more than structures of bricks, steel, and glass. They are physical manifestations of human aspiration. Each one rises from the ground not merely as a place to live or work, but as a symbol and external expression of internal desires, dreams, and ambitions. Throughout history, people have looked to the sky and imagined what could be built, not just to serve needs, but to reflect something greater. The desire to reach beyond limits, to mark existence with meaning, to leave a legacy of creation that transcends time. When we look at iconic buildings, especially in a city like New York, we are not just seeing architecture, we are seeing the embodiment of vision. The towering presence of the Empire State Building is not just an engineering feat, it is a symbol of what is possible when determination, vision, and action converge. In the midst of the Great Depression, when uncertainty and fear clouded the world, this building rose as a beacon of hope and human ingenuity. It reflected a collective aspiration to rise above hardship, to create something lasting and extraordinary in the face of adversity. Such structures do not emerge randomly. They are born from a mindset that believes in potential, in progress, and in the power of the human spirit. When architects design, they are not simply drawing plans, they are translating ideas, emotions, and values into form. When workers build, they are not merely assembling materials, they are contributing to a vision that began in the unseen realm of thought and intent. Every building, whether a humble home or a monumental tower, carries the imprint of someone's desire to shape the world, to express identity, to strive towards something higher. Aspiration is the energy that fuels this process. It is the quiet force that says, more is possible. It is not driven by greed or ego, but by the deep human longing to grow, to reach, to evolve. When we build, we leave behind a mark, a symbol of our inner journey, our values, our time, and our place in history. This is why buildings resonate with people. A cathedral may inspire awe, not because of its size alone, but because it points to something beyond the material, a longing for the divine, for beauty, for transcendence. A modern skyscraper may evoke wonder because it challenges gravity, defies expectation, and demonstrates the power of human will aligned with purpose. Even the simplest buildings carry aspiration. A school represents the hope for knowledge and growth. A hospital reflects the desire to heal and serve. A home holds the aspiration for safety, love, and belonging. In this sense, every building is a symbol, a silent witness to what people value, dream of, and strive toward. As the needs and aspirations of society evolve, so too does architecture. Today, as consciousness expands to include sustainability and interconnectedness, buildings are increasingly designed to reflect care for the environment and the well-being of all. This shift in design reflects a shift in aspiration from individual success to collective harmony. Symbols have power. They communicate without words. They inspire, they endure, and they remind us of who we are and who we can become. When we see a building, we are seeing more than design. We are seeing the culmination of countless decisions, intentions, and efforts, all guided by a desire to express something meaningful. The skyline of a city, therefore, is not just a collection of structures. It is a portrait of aspiration and form, a visual story of people reaching beyond what is to what could be. Through architecture, we glimpse the heights of human spirit and the ever-present drive to bring inner vision into outer reality. In the unfolding story of life, change is not an interruption, it is a natural and essential part of existence. Everything we see, touch, and experience is in a state of becoming. Nothing remains static, and nowhere is this truth more evident than in the ever-shifting landscape of a great city like New York. Buildings rise and fall, neighborhoods transform, and skylines evolve. Yet within these external shifts lies a deeper message. Renewal is not just inevitable, it is necessary. Change is the force that allows growth, and renewal is the process through which life continuously expresses its potential in new and varied forms. We often resist change because it brings uncertainty. It disrupts the familiar and challenges our sense of control. But if we observe nature, we see that change is woven into the fabric of everything. Seasons shift, rivers flow, trees shed their leaves to make way for new growth. Cities too are living entities, constantly adapting to the needs, values, and aspirations of their inhabitants. The buildings of yesterday give way to the structures of today, and tomorrow will bring forth something new, something shaped by the evolving consciousness of those who live within it. New York's transformation over time is a profound reflection of this principle. Areas once dominated by factories have become centers of art and culture. Vacant lots have been turned into vibrant parks. Aging buildings have been restored, reimagined, or replaced by structures that meet new needs. Each transformation is not an erasure of the past, but a renewal, a continuation of the city's story. In this renewal, there is respect for what was, recognition of what is, and openness to what can be. This process is mirrored within us. Just as cities evolve, so do individuals. Who we were in the past is not who we are today, and who we are today is not the limit of who we can become. Life continuously invites us to grow, to shed outdated beliefs, to release what no longer serves us, and to embrace new ways of thinking and being. This is not failure, it is evolution. Renewal is the inner rebuilding that allows us to live more fully, to align more closely with truth, purpose, and wholeness. Often in both cities and lives, renewal comes through disruption. A building may be damaged or outdated before it is transformed. A person may face a challenge, a loss, or a period of doubt before awakening to new clarity. These moments are not to be feared, they are opportunities. They are the spaces where old patterns dissolve and new possibilities emerge. The city rebuilds, and so do we. From the rubble of what was, something more conscious and intentional can arise. This cycle of change and renewal is not random. It is guided by an inner intelligence, one that knows when it is time to let go, when it is time to rebuild, and when it is time to grow. Cities are shaped by the collective desires and needs of their people, and people are shaped by their inner callings, their longing for meaning, connection, and self-expression. When we accept change as natural, we stop clinging to what was and begin participating in the process of renewal with grace. Every new structure that rises on a city block, every fresh perspective we adopt, every transformation we undergo, these are signs of life in motion. They show that we are not stuck, that the story is not over, that something new is always possible. In change there is power, in renewal there is hope. And in embracing both, we align ourselves with the flow of life, a flow that is always moving forward, always unfolding, and always inviting us to create again. Each of us, whether we realize it or not, is constantly building. We are shaping our days, our relationships, our experiences, and ultimately, the direction and quality of our lives. Like architects, we begin with a vision, sometimes clear, sometimes hazy, and from that vision, we design. Through our thoughts, our choices, our beliefs, and our actions, we construct the framework of our reality. We are not merely recipients of fate or victims of circumstance. We are creators, participants in the unfolding of our own story. Every decision we make is a brick, every intention is a blueprint, and every action lays the foundation for what is to come. To live with this awareness is to step into the role of architect consciously. When we understand that life does not just happen to us, but through us, we begin to take responsibility for what we are creating. Responsibility does not mean blame. It means the ability to respond with awareness, with purpose, with alignment. We are constantly constructing our lives through the lens of how we perceive ourselves and the world. If that lens is clouded by fear, limitation, or doubt, then what we build may feel unstable or unfulfilling. But if our perception is shaped by intention, clarity, and trust in our inner wisdom, then what we create can be strong, meaningful, and true to who we are. Every architect knows that a structure begins not with the final product, but with a vision. And that vision must be grounded in both imagination and practicality. In life, we often dream of outcomes, success, love, peace, fulfillment, but we sometimes forget that these outcomes are the result of the inner structures we build. The thoughts we entertain daily, the habits we practice, the energy we bring to each moment, all of these are the materials of our personal architecture. If we desire change, we must begin by revisiting the design, by examining what we are building from within. Life offers countless examples of people who have transformed their reality by shifting their internal blueprint. The person who moves from fear to courage, from scarcity to abundance, from confusion to clarity, does not do so by chance. It happens because they chose consciously or unconsciously to redesign their life from the inside out. Just as a building may undergo renovation to reflect new needs or tastes, we too can reshape our inner world to support the life we truly want to experience. This is the power we hold, not in force, but in alignment. We are also architects in how we respond to challenges. Life is unpredictable, and like any construction project, there are setbacks, delays, and unexpected detours. But the skilled architect adapts, reevaluates, and continues building. In the same way, we can meet life's uncertainties with resilience, using every experience as part of the design, refining and improving what we are creating. Challenges do not mean failure. They are opportunities to rebuild stronger, to refine our foundation, and to stay aligned with our highest vision. Moreover, we influence not only our own lives, but the lives of others. The energy we bring into the world, the choices we make, and the example we set contribute to the collective architecture of humanity. Just as buildings shape the environment around them, our presence shapes our relationships, communities, and the larger world. When we live with intention, kindness, and purpose, we build more than a life, we build a legacy. To recognize yourself as the architect of your life is to reclaim your power, not through control, but through conscious creation. It is to understand that your life is your greatest project, shaped moment by moment, thought, by the hands of your own awareness.